Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining us. I am your host, Jesus Ramirez, and with me today I have an incredible guest, and that is Mr. Bert Monroy. Hey Bert, how's it going? Good to see you.
Hey, good to see you too. It's great.
Thank you so much for joining us, Bert. It's amazing to have you here. You're one of my heroes, a Photoshop master, and it's incredible to have you. For those people that don't know you, please let us know a little bit about you.
Oh, a little bit about me. Okay. I've been an artist my entire life. I was a commercial artist. I was an art director in various ad agencies and such. And I've been painting with acrylics and oils and watercolors, everything that I could imagine. But I was never totally happy with any of my mediums. But in 1984, I had a partner in a small ad agency that we had, and he told me that we needed to computerize, which is how I got to see Photoshop about 2 years before Adobe knew it existed.
What Photoshop user number were you, Bert?
8, as far as I know, number 8, and it just was. I realized that this is it. This I had gone all the way and found my true medium. I don't do commercial work anymore, but I pretty much sit and paint right here on my screen and then talk about it like we're doing now.
Awesome. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your new piece, which is why we're here. Can you tell us a little bit about the new piece and what people are going to learn today?
Well, it's a new piece, and I really wanted to do it with you because of the fact that you were inspirational for it. My wife and I went up to Sonoma to celebrate your birthday. And it's Sonoma. It's a beautiful place, and it was now after the dinner and stuff. And so we would walk into our car. We decided to just walk around town, and the theater in Sonoma just caught my eye. It was so beautiful and old. It's from 1931, and I just saw a painting in it, and so I immediately took some pictures and came home and painted it. So it was actually from your party that I got the inspiration from for this painting.
Awesome.
So I'm going to show how some features of it and how it was done. I also going to show something that's come up a lot in emails recently, and then I'm going to talk about. I could do all kinds of tricks. I can easily. I've done a class twice that was 5 days for 10 hours a day. Okay, it was really. A 6-hour day, but then the students had their own time at night on the machines, so I was there with them. So it was kind of like a 10-hour day for
Right.
5 days. So I have enough material, but what I want to talk about is the thought process behind things too.
Okay.
You know what I go through to get my reference and so on, and working on the inspiration. So I want to tackle that because there's plenty of tricks and tips and tricks online of how to do this and how to do that, but nobody really discusses the back studies and stuff like that. So I want to get into that for a little bit, and then if there's questions from the audience, I'd love to answer them.
Yeah, for sure. If anybody has any questions throughout the stream, please let me know. I'll be happy to ask Bert. Bert, is it okay if we share your screen now and we can get to it?
There it is. The painting's right there waiting for you to see.
Perfect. So I'm going to share the screen, and this is a new painting.
Yeah, it's called the Sebastiani Theater. Now, can I go through it?
Yeah, please, please.
All right, so I'm known for my details. So when you get it like up into this area here, you can see that there's a little dents and stuff like that, and little damages way up here. You can see the little connections to the board itself. Little damages here in the wall and dirt. So it's I get into more than the camera can capture. That's one of the things about my work is that I'm not really a photorealist because photorealists adhere to the photograph. I don't. I adhere to the place. When you take a picture of something, there's a little thing with the depth of field. Okay, so things that are far away will be out of focus. Things that are close by are in focus. In my paintings, if you look at something far away, Oh, the screen went black there for a minute. Look at things far away; they are just as much focus as they are in the foreground. Actually, let me open up something to give you an idea. Something that the camera can't capture, but I can. So
Okay.
let me get into here and go down to Times Square. This is 4 years of work. For those who've never seen my work, this will be a good way to see it. This is on the exhibit at the Computer History Museum. It's 5 feet by 25 feet, so it's really big. And the camera, when I took pictures for the photo study, like the building way back here, the windows were these little orange boxes because the camera can't really pick up that detail. But if we get in real close to things, like for instance, go in real close to my son's eyes over here, you can see a reflection of what he's looking at. Okay, if you look at those windows up there, you can go in real close and see that there's things going on, a little party going on in there, and so on. And no matter where you look, you're going to see details. Like way up here, if I go real close in here, you can see the little dirt and rust on those little rivets there. So anywhere you look, it's going to be in focus. So it's more like what the eye sees rather than what the camera captures. Also, because of the fact that it's a panorama like this, if you do that with a camera, it's going to kind of round out things. Whereas here, this is true perspective because I very carefully study the perspective to get everything right. And so a lot of the stuff here is made up. Every person down here is somebody that I know. In fact, there's me right here. Let me get in close on that. There's me right there taking a picture of my wife. And sure enough, she is in the camera too. So all the detail is there. The things that the camera couldn't capture, I put in. So it's like putting the viewer there rather than what the camera can capture. Okay. So let's close this guy away. And so the main thing here is the neon. Okay, right. I really got into the neon. I've done quite a few theaters. I used to collect neon, and I've done many paintings of theaters. So the neon here is taken into a few things that I've done differently. So I'm going to just show you how the neon was created. Can I go with that now?
You can go ahead. If there's any specific questions, leave them in the chat and we'll be happy to answer them for you.
Great. Okay. So now, actually getting back to this again, the workflow, because of the fact that the complexity of these things and the resolution is so high, there are multiple files that I work on. I don't do everything in a single file. Like for instance, this particular image is made up of 3 files: the building, the marquee, and the neons. All 3 separate files. That makes it a little easier. Like for instance, in Times Square, there's over 1,000 files because there's over 750,000 layers in all those files. So I have to work in pieces. Now, I carefully plan the way these things are done, and I do them in individual layers and stuff, and I have what I call my composite file. When I create something, and I'll do this in a second so you can see how that works, but I'll bring everything into the composite file where I start adding all the elements together and so on. When it's done, I do what's called the once over. What I'll do is I'll go to 100% on the image right here, like that, and I'll start on the upper left, right here, and I'll just look at everything, looking for things to fix, and then I'll just come down here and look for more things. When I get to the bottom, I'll come over and start going up and so on. When I get to the lower right, which is right down here, and I've done all the fixes, that's when I rename the file. I get rid of all the layers and I rename the file, the name of the file, and that's when I'm done. So there's a lot of steps that go along the way, and neon was its own file because of the fact that the complexity and all the different layers that make it up. So I got here a little piece of the image, and I'm going to show you how the neon was created. The pen tool is basically my drawing tool. In fact, Illustrator, Adobe Illustrator, is my pencil on the canvas. Photoshop is the paint.
Right.
I start planning things in Illustrator. The perspective I plan in Illustrator, especially for something like Times Square, because of the size of it, the vanishing points were way off to the sides. So I had to go in there and move things around so that I can see what I'm doing and work and so on. So in here, I'm going to use the pen tool right in the scene here. So I'm going to start right here, click. I'm going to follow the angle and click and drag right there. And I'm going to give a little curve right there and come over to here, right about there, click, come down and over. Now, being the path, I can easily now go in there and refine this. So I'm going to go in there and get this right in the middle there. Let's bring this over so it follows that angle, which means I'm going to have to bring this guy over just a little like that, make this straight. There we go. And this guy looks fine. There he is the way he is. So now we got what's going to be the neon. Let me lift this guy up just a little. There we go. So now I'll get my paintbrush and I'm going to get the color for the neon. This is going to be the blue neons. So I'm going to get a nice, like kind of a really light blue, almost white, really light like that, right? So I'm going to go in and get a brush, a hard edge brush, and I'll go into my brush settings and make sure the spacing is down to 1% so that it's a solid line. Then I'm going to go in here and I'm going to size it down to the size that I want, which is about the size of the actual openings right there like that. So in a new layer, so everything goes into a layer, I'm going to go in there and I got it the way it is. So I'm going to my path. There's my work path, which I would automatically name and so on, but I'm not going to bother here. And I'm going to go ahead and stroke it. And there it is. So it's stroked. So now we got the neon in place. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a little life. I'm going to go in and I'm going to give it a little inner glow, right there. And I'm going to pick a nice deeper blue, more like that kind of a blue. Click OK. Now we're not seeing it because being a glow, it's automatically set to screen, meaning any colors that are lighter will show, anything darker will not. So I'm going to set this to normal. So it's just going to give me that blue. There you see the blue. I'm going to bring up the opacity a little bit so it's a little stronger so we can really see it. Come on, grab it. There we go. There it is. And I might choke it just a little and soften it. There we go. So now I got that nice little edge to it. I'm going to then give it a little outer glow. Now, in the painting, there is no outer glow because it was a very dry night. If it's kind of misty out or foggy, you would see a glow around the bulbs, but usually you will not see a glow around them. So I'm going to pick a nice blue for that one, too. Get into the blues right there. And let's say we pick a nice light blue like that. And you can kind of see it out there. This is set to screen, so that's good. I'm going to bring up the opacity and bring up the size just a little. See, so now we got that nice little glow around the bulbs. Click OK. So now, the area where it goes into the sockets there, that has a paint on it. They paint it so you don't see you only see the line that you want, which is this part here. So I'm going to get black right here for my foreground color, and I'm going to go over here and I'm going to pick one of the paint brushes that's going to give me the effect I want. Now there's all these presets, and by the way, a little side note. Let me come way down here. These three right here, dune grass, and maple tree, these are my brushes. I created those when we were first developing the brush engine for Photoshop. I was brought in as one of the only painters who were alpha testers, and I created these brushes. There's a whole bunch of other brushes, my azalea brush and other brushes.
If you don't mind, Bert, let me interject for a quick second. For some reason, 2 versions or 3 versions ago, Adobe decided to hide a lot of the older brushes in Photoshop. So if people want to get them, they have to bring them back.
Yes, they're in there.
Do you mind showing them where to do that?
Yeah, in here, there's all these legacy brushes and so on, show recent brushes. So there's ways of going in there and looking for additional brushes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did hide them. They sometimes think they're making it easier, but in the long run,
I have no idea why they hit them. And they hit a lot of brushes, patterns, shapes, pretty much everything that all the custom or default assets they give you, they hid like in 2019 for some reason.
Yeah. So paintbrush, I found a paintbrush that I want to use. So right here, I'm going to create a new layer right on top of this. Just one layer. Okay, there. All right. And I'm going to clip it with the layer of the neon. So I'm going to option click on it so that I'm only seeing it inside. And now I'm going to go in there and with black, I'm going to go and paint right in here like this. And let me do some arrangements here. Let me go in here and take the size jitter, give it a little size jitter and change the angle so that it's all the way around and bring in the brush So it's a little tighter like that. Okay, now I'm going to go in here and make it a little bigger. I'm going to start to paint right inside here. So there's that paint that that they put in just to so you don't see that part of the brush. Okay, just like that. Let's go in. Whoop, not there. All right. Now with the same brush, I'm going to bring down the opacity to about 20, and right here I'm just going to throw a little dirt along the top of the bulb because it is outside and it does get exposed to some little grime here and there, just like that. So now the glow, you wouldn't see the glow there, and you wouldn't see the inner glow either. You shouldn't see those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the layer of the neon, and I'm going to come up here to layer, go down to layer style, and go down to create layer. What that's going to do is going to separate. Click OK. Now I have this don't show again on my screen. I'm going to say, so now they went into separate layers. Now you notice that the inner glow, because it was put behind the black paint, it disappeared. It's still there, but you just don't see it because the black is there. What I'm going to do now is to the outer glow, which is this guy here. Here it is, the outer glow. I'm going to take my eraser, and I'm just going to go in there and let me soften it up a little bit. And I'm going to erase it from out there. See, so now you don't see that there. You only see where the light is. So we'll just erase it from these areas here. So now we see the glow inside there. Now the neon looks the way it should. Then the final touch is I'll go in there and create one more layer. I'll get real close like here, and I'll get my paintbrush again, and this time I'll use that hard edge brush right there, but I'll make it really small. Okay. Oops, don't want that. Make it really small. And bring the opacity back up to 100%. And I'm just going to go in here and draw this little wire going right around there like that. I wouldn't make it a little thinner. I made it too thick, but there you get the idea. So we go there, you see the wire going across it. You see the paint on the edges, and you see how the neon was set up. So it gives you an idea of how the neons were created for that particular piece. These little guys here were a separate file. They were done somewhere else because they were in multiple colors to go with the different colors of the scene. The actual scene is over here. Okay, because you see that certain areas are in red and green and so on. So, and they're being lit that way. So when you get in close over here, you see that these are kind of green.
Right.
We're actually created as slightly green so that they would fit into the area where they go. Here you can see that the wires are real thin.
Quick side comment here. Mike Johnson, I guess he mentioned this while I was telling my story about meeting you. He wrote, I was in touch with Bert over 10 years ago, and I was just so honored when he replied my email.
Well, I do reply. I tell people, like when I do conferences and stuff, I tell people, tell them my email, and I said, if you have questions, and I tell them just like this, I say, if you have any questions, feel free to write me and I'll answer them. If you do it twice a day, I'm going to charge you. But that's what I usually tell people. But
where can people find you, Bert? Your website, or if somebody's watching now and they want to get in touch with you?
Bert at bertmonroy.com. BERTMONROY.
There you go. Bert at bertmonroy.com, or check out your website at bertmonroy.com. And I'll put it in the chat so people could see your website as well.
Yeah, my wife, as I'm speaking about, and I'm talking here, she's putting this onto my website. Since now it's been shown to the public, she's putting it on my website.
Fabulous.
Yeah. And this is, by the way, this is great to show this because I always used to unveil pieces at Mac Worlds and Photoshop Worlds and SIBO, all these conferences that used to be. And then the pandemic came. So I had no way of showing them. And since 2020, I've been unveiling things on Facebook. It's not quite the same thing. I like to be able to talk to people and see what they think and hear criticisms or whatever. So it's been kind of weird. It's been my most prolific time since 2020. I've done more painting. I've done 18 paintings since the pandemic hit. Wow. Because there's no traveling. I mean, when I would go to a conference, I'm there for a few days and having a good time. Whereas now I'm here. I do a Zoom thing, and then I'm still here. So I've been painting a lot more than I usually do. But unveiling has been kind of difficult. I've only unveiled one live, and that was at the Creative Pro Conference, which was in Phoenix a few months ago. I unveiled a second piece like this at Dave Cross's
Photoshop Summit.
yeah, which I'm going to open right now because I want to do something on that. And then this one. So I miss being able to unveil things where everybody could see them, and talk about them. This I unveiled. This is the piece before this. I unveiled this at Dave Cross's conference, and I got so many comments on the railing. They said, "Oh wow, the wood grain is so beautiful. How did you create that?" It's so incredibly easy. I got to show how the
yeah. Let's show it. And before you show it, there's a question, and maybe you can answer it as you're teaching, which is Abdul Bunny, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, Abdul, is asking, how do you make sure everything fits together aesthetically once you combine all those small pieces together? And do you work in proxies or lo-fi until you have a selection done?
No, that's why I work in separate files, because I work at high res for everything. In fact, elements, like for instance, well, let me open up another piece just to give you an idea, because this one is, Times Square was like that, but this one here, this one, I kind of mentioned this one before, Amsterdam Mist. Each one of these trees is 5 gigabytes, the actual working file. Each one of these trees took about 10 days to do. How did it take so long? Well, look at all those branches. Okay, and those branches have to be attached. They can't just be little lines going all over the place. No, they have to actually work like real trees. So I take a lot of care. Now, the buildings, to get the kind of detail that I wanted, like we're getting close to this building here, and we look at the little railings and stuff, what I do is I work at 200% of what I need. So each building was done as its own layer, in its own file with all the layers that pertain to it, at 200% of what I need. That way I can get a lot more detail than I can possibly get working to size. Then what happens is I will take all the layers, like let's just say I'll go in here and, well, I tell you what, let me open up a layered file just to give you an idea. Okay, so we're in Amsterdam, and we'll go, and being organized is very important. Okay, so this is Amsterdam Mist. These are the working files. Here's the buildings. That building is number 7, which is on the right, on the first block, number 7. See, so very organized to know exactly where things are. So I'm going to go into building number 7. And there it is. Now, there are perspective. Here's the perspective lines. All right. These are the perspective lines that I follow, that I create in the main file, so that I can see when you move this down, you see that everything is following the perspective. All the little separations in the windows, everything is following the perspective. So that's there. And all the different paths for all the different elements of the scene, they're all here. So when we look at the layers here, you'll see that there are quite a few layers. And look, there's a lot of folders inside, more folders, open the railing, all these different layers. There's a lot of layers that go into it. See, there's more folders down here that aren't even open. So you can see there's a lot of layers. Now, what happens when I'm done, right here, you see this one? 07 comp. That's the comprehensive. That's the composite, rather. That's the composite of the file. Now, here it is. Here's the folders. Here's the facade, and so on, the pieces and so on. So what I do is I'll go in here and I will merge this. And I say merge visible. Now, you notice how everything else disappeared? Let me undo that. When I create my composite file, I come over here and I hold down the Option key. Hold down the Option key, Alt on a PC, and say merge visible. And you see what happens? The files are still there, the folders are still there, but it created a whole new layer, which is a composite. Okay? That's the one that then goes over to the main file, gets reduced by 50% to bring it back to its original, the size that I need for the file, and then it gets put into position. So that little action that I just did to make that composite file, pertains to a lot of things. These are things that are not documented, but the shift, command and option, shift, control, and alt on a PC, those are modifying keys. Now, a lot of the functions in Photoshop are changed by the creation of or the use of those keys. Let me give you a quick one that I love to use because it's so silly, yet it does work. Here, let me open a new file and just show you something. Let's do this. Okay, so right here, I'm going to give this, I got black and white. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to use a filter. I'm going to go in here to render clouds. Okay, see the clouds? There they are. Now, I'm going to undo that. And this time I'm going to do the same filter, but I'm going to hold down the option key and I go down to render clouds. Now look at it. See the contrast? Yeah. You see how much stronger the contrast is, the difference between the black and the white?
Yeah, and so let me say one quick thing, Bert. I actually learned that from you. I've shown it before to people, and I always say I learned that one from Bert Monroy because I had no idea until you showed that. And one of the comments I wanted to make is usually when I show this, some of the comments people say is like, "Oh, isn't that just a regular clouds but inverted?" And the answer is no, it's more contrast. For some reason, people seem to think that's an inversion of the regular clouds, but it's not.
No, it's just a higher contrast because you see that I didn't do an inversion. In fact, here, since I'm here, why don't I do this? I'll do a little render difference clouds. Again, oops. Oh, they changed that control.
Yeah, they did. It's no longer.
I just updated to the new operating system and things. So I'm going to do it again. Yeah. I'm going to do it again. I keep applying it, and you notice what's starting to happen? I'm having marble. There, the clouds have just become marble. If you use a black and a green, you're going to have a nice Italian marble kind of thing. So it's just sitting there and playing. That's how I learn things, is by sitting and playing, because pretty much every piece of software I've ever used, I got before it was released. So there was no manual. Photoshop, I co-wrote the first book. There was no book. There was no YouTube back in those days. So I would sit there and I would literally hold on the option key and run my finger across the keyboard. Ooh, what was that? Something happened. And I go back and recreate it. That's how I found a lot of those kind of things. And that's always been the case. I remember Pixel Paint. Pixel Paint had a cool one. If you use the pencil tool and you held down the option button and clicked, it would create a fractal tree. Create a different tree every time. So whatever the color was of the foreground color, it would create a tree of that color. If you held down the option and the command and clicked, you would get a tree, the color of the foreground color, with fruit, the color of the background color. That wasn't documented. I did this piece for Macworld with Pixel Paint, which was a recreation of Frank Lloyd Wright's Falling Water. And
No, go ahead. Finish your thought, and I have a question.
There were all these trees, and I'm on the phone with them. I was still in New York. I'm on the phone, and they said, "How did you do all these trees?" I said, "Oh, I just used the blah blah blah." But and they couldn't believe it. So I said, "Do it here." I said, "Click it," and I heard all these voices on the phone saying, "Oh." I couldn't say those words online. They were all like, "Wow, I didn't know that." Well, these are the things that aren't documented, but they Easter eggs, as I call them, things that happen that when you hold down the option key and do things. They've changed the functions of a lot of the filters and so on.
Absolutely. It's one key that you should always hold when you press something, because odds are is that something may happen that you're not expecting, and it could be pretty cool. Bert, so 2 questions, and maybe you want to show it. I think it's important. We have a question from Abdul again, and he is asking, he's the mysterious unknown revealed is asking, can you do diagonal guides in Photoshop? And I think he was referring to the perspective grid that you created. If I'm not mistaken, those were not Photoshop guides; they were paths.
They're paths. I established a perspective. Here, let me show you. Let me switch to Illustrator here, and I'll show you the most outrageous perspective study because of what it is, which is Times Square. I'll just show you. where I established the perspective. Now, I'm traditionally trained, and there is a horizon line, and there is a vanishing points within that horizon line. And look at that. I have it open. Let's see. Working base AI. I have it open already. There it is. Oh, this is an early one. Oh, why was that open? Okay, let me open up from the thing itself. Here we go. Go down to Times Square. You get an idea right there of what's happening. But Times Square and working files. And here's the working base. No. Document is already. Oh. No. Okay, that's the wrong one. Go down there and TS space. Ignore. Okay, there's the one of the photographs, but you can see the thing. Let's go here to the layers. Layers, and you can see there's a lot of layers for every different thing. So let me turn that off and pull back. Okay, and I see that most of these guys are turned off. Let me turn them all on. There we go. And
Wow.
you see, okay, there's all the different perspective lines. Now, because of the size of this file, here's the file size right here. The streets going down 46th Street here, the vanishing points are way down here. The complexity here is because of the fact that Broadway is going at an angle, the different buildings are going to have different vanishing points, you see, based on where they are in position. On this side, there's a whole, so all these are individual lines. Let me turn off some of them here so you can start to see. And you see that there's all these, each different building has its own set of vanishing lines and so on. There's a few.
And they all fall on the horizon line. I think that's something important.
Yeah, there's a vanishing point. The horizon line. And yeah, which is right here, this green line right there, the thick line. That's the horizon line. And that's a composite I did that then follows the different shapes of where they would be. There are distortions in the photograph, but I have to know exactly where they are, and then I create my vanishing lines, which are going to give me the straight lines that the eye sees rather than what the way the camera curves it. Though that is a composite photo merge to get the different pieces in place, but it doesn't look like the painting because I changed a lot of the posters and stuff. But here's where I established a perspective. It's working traditionally, horizon line, vanishing points and vanishing lines to determine where things are. So it isn't a feature of Photoshop. It's just using traditionally trained techniques of establishing perspective. And this is just an indicator. So if it's 4 o'clock in the morning, I remember what I'm working at, what size I'm working at here. I couldn't work at 480 ppi on Times Square because the computer couldn't handle it back then.
Wow.
That gives you an idea of stuff. And these perspective lines are pretty important, to get something really right. If they don't follow the rules of perspective, it's not going to look right. You see this little group?
Yeah.
Right here? See all these little lines? Okay, let's go back to Photoshop. Okay, and let me open up Times Square again. And you'll see what that's all about. Times Square. Here it is. Okay, all those little lines are right there, the grills on the truck. If they don't follow the same perspective, even the untrained eye is going to look at it and say, hey, that looks off. That doesn't look right. So every one of these is following the proper perspective. Even the damaged ones are following the perspective. So those little lines that you saw were for this truck right here. See, and everything is a separate file, like in here. Each one of these things is a separate file. Each one of these, this is about 7 layers right here. So, this is a lot of work that went into this guy here.
For sure.
A perspective is crucial to get everything right. There's no distortion here. If you were standing where I'm standing here at Times Square, it would look this is what your eye would see exactly like this. No matter where you're looking, the perspective is right. And these are the two guys who originally wrote Photoshop, Tom Noel
Tom
and his
Noel.
brother, John
Yeah.
Noel.
And by the
Yeah.
way, I just wanted to let people know if they're interested in this piece, they can actually go to your YouTube channel. You don't post often, but you did post a training
Yeah.
series
Well,
on how this was created.
the reason for that is I used to do a lot of stuff on lynda.com.
Right.
I've had so many different videos, and I had the making of Times Square, which is about 14 hours of training.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, LinkedIn bought lynda.com, and I started getting all these emails from people and calls. And I showed that to my class, and they don't have it. It's not there anymore. And I said, what do you mean? And so I called them up, and I said, hey, why is Times Square down? And they said, well, it's dated. It's old. I said, but everything in there still works exactly the same. Yeah, but it's just kind of old.
Yeah.
So I convinced them to give me the files
Mm-hmm.
because I put them there. I asked them to give me the files, and then I started a YouTube channel, and I threw them all in there for free.
Yep.
That way,
I'm going to share my screen so people could see that. So I'm going to share my screen, and if you guys you clearly are watching this from YouTube, so if you're on YouTube now, just type in Bert Monroy in the search bar and click on Bert's YouTube channel. This is his picture, and if you go look at his videos, click on the video tab, you'll see all the videos. And how many hours again is this, Bert?
14 hours worth.
14 hours worth of training for free on how the Times Square piece was created. So a lot of the same techniques that you're using for your most recent painting, I'm sure you're using for the older ones. Maybe some updated techniques now, but I would assume the essence is the same. Creating hair, you have creating fabric, creating lips, a whole bunch of stuff, creating chains, cars, glasses, bottles. I mean, everything is here. So
Yeah.
I would definitely check this out. So yeah.
Actually, if you just do a search for me on YouTube, period, you'll find hundreds of other videos because I've done videos for a lot of different people and stuff. And so there's a lot of them on there.
Right. Yeah, so there you go. That's a free resource for you guys. So I really hope that you enjoy it. But let's get back into Photoshop and show a couple more tricks before we go, Bert. It's almost time to go.
It's almost that time already. I didn't even get to discuss the whole. Well, anyway.
No, we'll discuss it. We don't. It's not a hard out. We can stay an extra 5-10 minutes if you like. Up to you.
Okay. All right, so let me do this one real quick. The wood. Okay, after I unveiled this, everybody was saying about the wood here. So let me show you how the wood was created. It's so easy that I just want to show so everybody will know what it is here. So let's do this size right here. Okay, so here it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and find a nice brown color for the wood. There's a nice brown right there. So in a layer, because I do everything in a layer, I'm going to go ahead and fill that with that color. There's the brown. Now I'm going to go in there and give that noise, add noise. And I'm going to have a very high number. I usually use a high number. So there it is, a high number. And I put monochromatic, so it doesn't introduce any reds or greens. I want to keep it in the browns. Click OK. Now that I have that noise, I'm going to come up here and give it another filter. I'm going to go in there. And one thing I like to tell my students is forget what layer styles and filters are called, because they give you all these controls. It's going in there and playing with them, holding down the option key will change what the name infers. Okay, like for instance, motion blur. You know what motion blur is, but what it does can be useful for so many things. So I'll come down here to motion blur, and I'll choose a very high number. There's a high number right there. Click OK. And I got that. Now I'm going to go into my levels, where I see that all the colors are towards the middle. So I'm going to push my darks towards the middle and my lights towards the middle. There you go. Now I'm starting to get my wood grain. See, I can even apply that other filter one more time, the blur filter, motion blur one more time, and give it even more streak. See, so now I will take this and I'll bring it into another filter. I'll go in here to liquefy. And in liquefy, what I'll do is I'll take and just, I got a good size brush. I'll just kind of push things around. See, like this. Actually, this is the blow tool. So let me just hold it in one place. And there we got a knot forming. See, there's a little knot for the wood right there. And in the this guy here, I'm just going to move things around to kind of give it a little more of a little curls here like that. And that's how wood was created, how I create wood textures and so on, So if you want to create something very stylized, you can see that it is wood. So basically that's how I went in there and cancel that and close that. That's how I created this wood grain right here. And that just added a little extra colors just to get the real close here. We can get in closer, and you can see there's the wood grain. So it's just noise that's been, and then colorized slightly to get and added the reflections of shiny wood into
I
the
think
scene.
that's what makes it incredible, the reflections and also the highlights on the edge there. Those bright highlights are
These over here.
those, right there
The
is
little highlights.
fantastic.
Yeah. And the water was all brush strokes and so on. So now let me very quickly talk
please.
about what goes into the preparation of these things.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's an important thing that I like to cover because there is a lot of research involved. So I have, and you'll see that there's a lot of stuff in here. Maybe I could do this all in 5 minutes, but here we go. So the prep. Let me shoot down to. Let's stay in prep. Okay. So here, Light in Warsaw. All right. Here's the painting. Here's the painting right here. I mean, or rather the photograph. This is the photograph. This is what the camera captured. Right. Now, right off the bat, I know that this building is kind of a beigey color, but the type of light that they were using in there was casting this greenish glow, which isn't what I wanted. And I needed to see detail, like what is happening up here? I can't really see detail. So I couldn't just go back to Warsaw and see what this looked like. So I had to rely on Street View. I do a lot of stuff in Street View, like that Amsterdam painting. I went back to Amsterdam in Street View and stood in front of each building to look at the details that I needed.
And you're talking about Google, correct? Like Google Maps?
Yeah, Google Maps. Yeah. So right here, what I did is I went in, and here's the reference. I went to my Photos app, and to find exactly where that photograph was. There it is. There's that photograph on the corner of these two streets. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. But once I knew where it was, I went there to in Google Street View, and there I was on the corner right there looking at the lamp.
Right.
And I just opened up a couple of shots, look for the best possible view, which was this one from this angle, which had a better lighting. And then I went in there and got the close-up shot, so I knew exactly how this thing looked. See? So now I knew what the lamp looked like, so I can then recreate it properly. So Google Street View is really, and let me show you the painting, which is more like the actual thing. Here's the actual painting. Notice the distortion is gone, and the stuff is there. There's a window up here which you couldn't see in the photograph. So here you now can actually see all the details that are in the painting, all the damage on the wood and stuff that a lot of it I create myself just for fun. But there I was able to get no distortions because the camera was kind of tilted it this way, whereas this is the way the eye sees it when you're standing there. So this is the painting. Get rid of that, get rid of that. And I can leave that open for now. Venetian Night. Here's another one where I had to go and do some studies. Now, here's the inspiration. There's the inspiration. My wife and I took a bus ride, it's a boat, down to the end, the last stop, because I wanted to get away from where the tourists are and see where the people live. And there was this great scene, which I love that light. Now, you notice how orangey it looks? They usually cameras capture incandescent light. It's kind of orangey. And it doesn't look like Venice. It looks like one of the many flood scenes we saw on the news this past winter. So I wanted to look more like Paris. I mean, like Venice. So here's the actual painting. There's the painting. See, now the lighting is more like it realistic. Now you see the buildings in the back, and you notice I made the poles what you expect from Venice. I extended this thing and put moldings around the windows, which weren't there in the original shot. Let me put the two of them together. There you can see the difference between the two of them. Now, when I went ahead and started doing this kind of stuff, well, what's involved there? What's going to happen with shadows? That's where I went into Illustrator here, and I opened. Let me get to this real fast here because I have it here. Prep, Venetian Night, and here it is right here. I did a little aerial view of the view of the building. See, and there's the little balcony, and there's the light, and I drew lines to give me an idea, and I can grab these so I can see, put this right here. Like, well, there's the one that's showing me. So it showed me that the light will cast a shadow of the balcony that would just touch the edge of the window next to it.
Wow.
So then when I went ahead and did the painting, you can see that the shadow is just touching the edge of the window right there. See? So I knew how long the shadows would be. So I had to do that kind of a study to go in there and see how things work. And then there are other things that I will do, like in this one here. This is a good one to show because
that one's my favorite. You know why?
Yeah. Because this one, let me just show you right here. There's Jesus right
there I am.
Walking down the street.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
this one.
That one's the one I like the best.
Yeah. Now this one here, if you look at the photograph, again, and I'm not a photorealist, here's the reference, here's the inspiration. Here it comes, there it is. Kind of boring sky, this pole was there, the trees are dormant, and there's things that you can't see here, like way down here. See these dark windows? You can't tell what they are. So I went to Google Street View to do a study, and I painted the way I felt rather than what the camera captured there. So when I go in here and see the painting itself, the pole is gone, the trees are not dormant anymore, they're alive, and those windows on the side, I could see that they were, in fact, leaded glass windows that you could see inside. So there you can see the windows themselves. In the photograph, again, you can't see a lot of details, like there's a food cabinet here, and there's food in there, but you can't really see what it is. So that I had to kind of make up. So when you go in here and look at the food, you see that the food there's the little clams and oysters and fish and crab, steaks and so on, tuna. So there you can see all the detail that goes into this. And there's my wife and I having dinner in the restaurant. See, and this is in the future because we have gray hair, more gray hair, but that's us in the future.
Nice.
So I had to do a lot of studies of that. Now, an important thing here is right here, this window here. Okay, now, there was a lot of references to go in here. Now, this window in the photograph, okay, the photograph, here's the photograph. If we look at that window, it's like, what's there? You can't really tell. The camera just couldn't pick it up. It's too dark and you can't tell what's going on there. So it is a window. So I went in and I did a quick study. And
as you're looking for the file, a quick question. Mike Johnson is asking, was the food good at this place?
Actually, we didn't eat at that restaurant. We ate at the Le Copelet down the street. But that was really, I just really liked that place. So I did that. I'll tell you when I go there in the future. Okay.
There you go.
What I did is I did an aerial shot of the in Google Maps of that street, and I put this box where that extension is of the building. Then I did put these books here and stuff, and I put a bunch of buildings, and these buildings are from that Venetian night scene, by the way. So I put them together to get an idea, and I put little matchboxes to represent the cars going down the street, and I put a little mirror there. And I then put the camera where I was standing, and I looked in the mirror to get a triangulation of where down the street I'm seeing that. Now, Google Street View couldn't give me what I needed because of the fact that, here's the street. I'm going down the street there. There it is. That's the street. Here's the restaurant. So I knew it was way down here. So what I did is I then walked down the street and went to that particular spot. And there it is. So now I knew what would be seen inside the scene would be this little area right here.
Right.
Now, there's one of the pieces, which is the reflection. You notice that things are backwards because they are a reflection. So when we look at the painting itself and go back to the painting, which is the dome right here. So now you see there's the reflection. You can see down here, these are glass and they have posters in the window. I have posters, and what they are is commercial pieces that I have done. And then the rest of the mirrors down here and the mirrors up here are picking up the building. You can kind of see the building in the glass too.
Yeah.
Right there. So there's the proper reflection that you would see if you were looking at standing on that corner and looking, you would see the reflection like that. So that gives you an idea of the kind of work that I go into. I think there was one more thing. Oh, yeah. One more thing right here. Okay. This one here. Fog City. Here's the painting. Okay. There's a lot of stuff going on here. Little things like way up here. There's a little plane up there and so on.
Can you zoom in? I want to see how much detail you got on that plane. That looks really good.
It's really tiny.
Wow.
It's really, when you get really close, I mean, it is, again, I did it larger than I needed, so I would get over. Now, this right here was important. This is Sutro Tower right here.
Wow, look at those birds.
Now, these poles that hold it up. Now, this is not based on a photograph. This is based on a view from my windows, which is much further than you're seeing it here. This is as if you're on the bridge looking at it. But I wanted to get it right, and the sun is setting. The sun is setting down here, so I needed to know how the light would capture on these poles, and I couldn't go in there and just wait until the sun is just right. It's really tough. So I went in there and I created this little model. See, I sometimes will create little models, and I 3 little sticks together and in a little thing, and then I held those up to the light. So I would see like how dark would this be compared to this side and so on, based on the light. Like here is being lit from above, but when I did the study, I lit it from the side. Right. So I knew exactly what tones each one of these would take. So when I then went ahead and did the actual painting, the brightness of the sun would be reflected on these different poles the way they should be. And all the detail is there coming down here. You see all the buildings and so on. One
question in the chat and also a funny comment. I'll go with the funny comment first. I'm glad Jesus is gushing just like we are. Makes me feel better about myself. And I've always told people, Bert, like you and I are friends. I mean, this is why we're here today. You were at my birthday, my 40th birthday party a year ago. And that's where you took that photo that inspired the latest painting. And like sometimes I forget that like we're friends, but I'll get a text message or a call from you, and I'm like, "Oh my God, it's Bert Monroy! Oh my God!" And I still freak out. You know? And I've been to your house many times. Your wife, and I, and my wife have had dinner many times, and like we're friends. And I just like still freak out, much like Abdul in the chat is. I'll tell everybody a story, another story really quick while Bert, you're opening up your next file.
Yeah, the reason I did this, I just saw the file that I had set it up for this demo, is that there's the actual dimensions of the image, and now you can really see all the perspective lines is much clearer how they work.
It looks incredible. I'll just tell a super quick story. One of my I made it moments in my career was a text message you sent me, and you probably don't even remember. This is like 4 years ago. You had a Photoshop question and you texted me about it, asking me something about Photoshop. And in my mind, I'm like, holy Christ, this is Bert Monroy, Photoshop user number 8, first author ever. Like in my mind, you're like the first Avenger, like the first Photoshop master. And here you are asking me a question, and I was happy for like a week. So that was my I made it moment. You texted me a question about Photoshop.
What was the question? I don't remember now.
Oh God, I can go through my text messages and see if I can find it, and I'll let you know.
Okay, because I'm curious now.
Yeah, but anyway, feel free to show the next example, and I'll scroll through the text messages. It's a lot of them, so I'll see if I can find it.
You get something. I show you.
Sure.
Yeah, here for people who never saw it, because it came out back in 1990.
That's the very first. Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, here, let me go to a page here. Uh, this is my son, and that's my daughter. He is now 45 years old, and she's 43. Okay, so they were little kids here.
Right.
So that gives you an idea of a long time ago. This book that was the first Photoshop book. It
Wow.
was the only book for almost 2 years. So it was a long time ago.
There you go.
So any other questions? Anything?
Only a comment from the chat. Photoshop Cafe, Colin Smith saying hello.
Hey, hi, Colin. Good to see you. I'm not seeing you, but good to know you're there.
Yep.
Yeah, cool. So that gives you an idea of how I work, how I plan my work. I would say, like Times Square, I would say I spent a good 2 months doing research. I went back to New York because I painted that when I was living here already. I went back to New York and I went to Times Square 9 times.
Mm-hmm.
The whole list of what's that look like, and I did zoom in and take pictures of it and so on, just to see how everything works.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was important to get things accurate. So I do a lot of prep work just to get things right, establishing perspective and getting all the details. And then a lot of the stuff I just put in myself just to give something a lot more life. Like one person once said, I usually keep the front of the restaurant very clean. I said, yeah, but it doesn't look real. You know, adding a little dirt in a little corner, maybe you missed it, or maybe it just got there before you cleaned it, you know? So it's, I add a lot of details to things just to give it a little more life and make it look more real.
Right. Is there anything else that you were planning on showing, Bert, or is that it? Because we don't have a hard out, but we're out of time. But if you have another tip, I'm sure people would love
Well,
checking it out.
I could go on for days,
Well,
but
so can I. How about we do one last tip, whatever you want.
okay,
I'll
whatever
share
I
your
want.
screen. Yeah. Oops, wrong screen. That was
Okay.
my screen. Now your screen.
See, let's see what I can come up with here. I know the brushes.
And,
Room.
I know I put you on the spot there, so sorry about
No,
that.
this is a good one. This is a good one. Let me open this guy here. Okay, this is Window in Rome, and it's a tip that people probably like. The railing here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this railing, it's all aged, and the wall back there has all these damages and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Things like the perspective on the railing. Let me do that because I think the file is here. Yeah, no, that's the rail wear. Okay, this will work. Okay, so I got here. I'm going to create a little railing right here, just like this. This is going to be the railing, and in a layer. I got brown. Let's just fill it with that brown. Okay, so there it is. That's the railing. It's very straight. Now I want to make it look like it's a little more rough. Okay, there's a filter that I'm going to use to do that. But where you apply that filter is what's going to make a difference. Like for instance, yeah, I could go in here and say give it a little noise. All right, we'll give it not that much noise, just a little less. Okay, and I'll go in there and say give it another filter, say pixelate, and say facet, and that kind of broke it up a little bit, but the edges are still hard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and I'm going to go and modify the selection. And I'm going to go in there and contract it just a little bit. Let's contract it, let's say 5 pixels. Okay, so there it is. It's just contracted a little bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give that railing now a mask. Okay?
Okay.
So now I'm going to go to the mask. And in the mask is where I'm going to apply the filter. So to the mask, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to go to my filter gallery. And I'm going to go over to brush strokes and use spatter. See what it just did?
Mm-hmm.
See what it did to the thing? Now I'm going to get in close to look at it. There it is. It's a little rough. So I'm going to say, dude, okay, that's good. So now let me get in real close. And I'm going to go in there and give it a filter. Give it a little blur more just to soften it up. See, maybe apply that filter one more time just to get it even softer. Okay, now I'm going to go into my levels where I'm going to tighten it up. I'm going to bring those in, bring these tighter, closer. There now it's not so rough. It's rough, but it's not pixelated. So now I come back over here. I go back to the art, and now you see that the edges are all kind of rough.
Hmm.
So that's how I go in there and age things like that banister that you saw there. They aren't straight because that building is very old and so
Right.
on. So when we go look at Window in Rome and you look at the railing and we're getting close, you can see that the railing has all these little rough edges.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's how that was done with a filter, but the filter was applied to a mask, which gave me the texture along the edges.
Amazing. There's a couple more questions that I want to ask you, but before we do that, I haven't talked about our sponsors, MSI. So if you don't mind just holding on for just a second, Bert, I just want to say a big thank you to our sponsors at MSI Computers. I use the MSI Creator Z17HX laptop, which has a powerful 13 Gen Intel Core i9 processor, and it uses the NVIDIA GeForce RTX 4070 GPU. The display is the 16:10 golden ratio, and it comes with an MSI pen allowing you to retouch directly on screen. Make sure that you check out the link below for all the details on this laptop. They have some deals going on for the holidays. It's a laptop that I use when I create on the go. So make sure you check it out. Yeah, so thank you for that. And oh, it looks like Bert is gone.
No, I'm here.
Oh, you're here. You're here. I just saw
I was just putting the book
chairs.
away.
I just saw the chairs spinning. I thought, oh, Bert's gone.
Yeah, no, I just put the book away.
No worries. We'll let you go in just a second, Bert, but there's a couple questions in the chat. So if you want to ask Bert one last question, let us know in the chat. I have some interesting ones here, Bert. The first one is from Asaf, who's asking, how has the rise of AI art impact your creative process and perspective on digital art? And we can just make it a quick answer because there's a lot of questions we want to get to, if you don't mind, please.
Okay, I'll make it quick. I'm glad I'm not doing commercial art anymore. It's good for commercial art where you have deadlines and so on. I do not use it at all because all of my paintings are completely created from scratch. I remember once saying that people used to ask me, well, can I just do that with a filter? You know, that kind of thing to simplify it. And I say, no, sometimes you got to do a little extra work.
Mm-hmm.
And the computer isn't doing the work, you are.
Right.
And I used to say, I dare you to turn on your computer, open up Photoshop, and sit there and wait. No, you have to do it. Now you can do that. Turn on Photoshop and wait. You know, put it in a prompt and it happens. For me, it's the process. Right. I'm a painter. If the computer is going to do the painting for me, then I've lost my process, my purpose, and the whole reason that I do it. So I don't use AI at all for my paintings. Right. If I was doing commercial work, I would, just because of deadlines and so on to speed things up. But my whole thing as an illustrator and as a painter is that I create everything from scratch.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. One quick question here is, how many hours did the dome or Le Dome take?
Le Dome took about, I'd say, it took about 7 months.
7 months. Wow.
Yeah.
Is that typical for your paintings, or what's a typical painting?
Most paintings, like for instance, the theater that unveiled here, mm-hmm. that only took, I'd say, about 3 weeks.
Okay.
Now, back at Times Square, there were times when I was working up to 14 hours a day.
Wow.
So it took a lot. But I would say Amsterdam Mist, that took 11 months. Mm-hmm. So there's different times depending on the complexity of the piece. And now they happen faster because of the fact that I retired from commercial work. So I don't have to worry about, I got to do this first. I devote all my working time to my personal work. Mm-hmm. So I get things done a lot faster, which is why I've done 18 paintings since the pandemic started.
Right.
So it takes time. They do take time because there is the research, independent of that, it's the amount of detail that I put into mm-hmm. something and the amount of steps that go into it that they take time.
They're all definitely a big time commitment. The next question is a comment from Jim in Ashland saying, I used to work with John Warnock when he was at Xerox, bought his bike for $10. Kev the Kraken is saying, stunning. What an awesome job. Thank you for sharing your entire process with us, Bert. Andrew is asking, does Bert have a bucket list of what he wants to work on next?
I have a whole folder called possibles. Yes, I do have a whole bunch. Every now and then I'll look at them and say, I think I'll do this one now. But most of the time it's something new. And since we're asking about the times, I'll show you one that only took 2 days. Okay. Only 2 days. It's a really short, simple one. And here's this one here. Sunset in Bodega. This one only took 2 days.
Oh, let me switch over to your screen so people could see. Sorry, I wasn't expecting that you were going to go back to your screen, but let me switch over to your screen so people could see. There we go.
Yeah, that only took 2 days.
Okay.
You can see it's very simple.
Right.
There's stuff going on in there. Oh, and by the way, remember that thing that I created the wood?
Yes.
And I gave it a motion blur?
Yep.
Same exact technique, but a much lower motion blur created the ripples in the water.
Super cool.
Yeah. So that gives you an idea of this. This only took a couple of days, 2 days of doing this. And in there, I had dinners and saw people and stuff like that. So this took total working time. I would say it took me a day.
Yeah. And a few more comments. P. Garza 1218 is simply saying that a lot of comments, but basically he's saying that they only use AI sporadically and only and that AI usually will mix your ideas with others and they're not, happy about that. Abdul said, very simple in quotation marks, then proceeds to blow our minds. Hannah's saying, it was a privilege to spend a wonderful evening with you. Thank you so much. Just a lot of nice comments, Bert. People are amazed, of course. People are talking about pixel perfect videos, how great they are. Even to this day, that's the thing I tell people. You can go back and read these old books, especially Channel Chops, which is, in my opinion, one of the best books on channels. And I know you have it in there somewhere. And it was written, in the early 90s, I believe, if I'm not mistaken?
96.
96. It was written 96. To this day, the best book on channels, in my opinion. Those things never change.
This is the only book that's not version specific, because in 96 there were more books than registered users, but nobody was covering things like alpha channels.
Right.
So we co-wrote this book to introduce the world to alpha channels, which had been there since before Photoshop.
Right.
And so there's a lot of things in here that are more about the technology rather than Photoshop techniques.
Right.
So this was a cult book I once saw it for $680 on
Man,
but this was a cult.
I have that one with your signature. How much is that one worth?
Probably another 10 cents.
Yeah, no, $600.10.
Yeah, I've seen it cheaper. I guess it's out of print, but this was a pretty cool book at the time.
Yeah, so I definitely recommend people checking out these older books that are not version specific. I don't recall specifics, but I'm sure there might be a couple things that are version specific in that book. But I would say the majority of it, 90+% of it, still applies today. And things that people are not talking about these days. People are so focused on the new bells and whistles in Photoshop, but this is really what's running Photoshop under the hood. So if you really want to get a good understanding of what's going on, behind the scenes, that's an excellent book. Like I said, I personally haven't seen anything that's better when it comes to channels than that book.
Yeah, there was one book that Katrine Eisman wrote.
And she's wonderful.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a pretty good book. Yeah, so it covered a lot of the things that were covered in Channel Chops, but it was a little later. So the screens that you see are a little more what you would expect.
Right.
See, like when you look at things like that screen, that they don't look like that.
Right.
That panel.
Yeah.
So certain things were kind of like because of the version, but the actual techniques that are being discussed are not. They're still the same because it's technology rather than bells and whistles.
Absolutely. All right, Bert. One more time, let us know where people can find you so they can maybe check your work after the stream.
Okay, Bert at Bert Monroy. Oh, Bert at BertMonroy.com is my email. But BertMonroy.com, BertMonroy.com. That's
The
Right.
website is not on screen, but his name is on screen, and that's how you spell it. And then just add a .com after that, no space, and you'll get to Bert's website. Bert, thank you so much. I appreciate you being here with us today, sharing your knowledge. Personally, I want to thank you for inspiring me when I was a kid. I used to draw Spider-Man comic books, and I remember watching your videos and buying one of your books. And what I used to do is I used to draw Spider-Man. I would scan it, take it into
Huh.
Photoshop, and then add all these textures and stuff to make it look more realistic. And I remember using some of the techniques you used to show on your books and applying it to my work. And I created denim, I created belt buckles, and all these different things based off your techniques. So personally, thank you so much for inspiring me. And also, I'm sure a lot of people watching have been inspired by you. So thank you so much.
By the way, you just mentioned denim. Denim is one of the creating denim texture is
Mm,
one of the things in the on the YouTube channel.
there you
From
go. There you go.
that was done for John Knowles pants.
John Knowles pants.
Yeah,
Wow. And actually, you know what? We've already gone so far over, over time that
yeah, half hour, an
yeah,
hour, yeah,
yeah.
half
And
hour.
I'm sorry for keeping you, Bert, but I'm gonna show one last thing. I'm gonna share my screen, and it's gonna be that Spider-Man, one of these Spider-Man drawings that I did way back in the day. Took it into Photoshop, and then added all these textures that were based on your techniques. I must have done this when I was about 18 years old or so. And it was based on the comic book Spider-Man No More. And I drew it by hand and then I styled it in Photoshop. And I'm actually going through my old photo here on Facebook because I know I uploaded it to Facebook a long time ago. Here we go. I'm gonna share my screen in just a moment here for you guys so you guys could see. And there you go. So this was actually the technique. I think I created these patterns
Oh,
and the denim and the belt buckle. And I know it's terrible. I was like I said, 18 years old or something when I did this. Barely learning how to use Photoshop, barely using layer styles and all this stuff. I was learning it, like a lot of the stuff that you did with brushes, I was trying to do with the muscles, the pattern on his suit. It was I forget exactly what specific technique you showed in the book, but I was applying it to that. You did something that had this metal in your book, and I was like, oh, I can use that for the belt buckle. So I was just looking at techniques that you made in your book for like something completely different, and thought, oh yeah, this could be the belt buckle. Oh, this could be the buttons in the pants or whatever, and this could be the texture for his, whatever it was. So this particular drawing for me was like I guess I can call it a study on like how to use layer styles and brushes to create something that looks, somewhat realistic. So yeah, just wanted
cool.
to share that with you, Bert, that because of your book, I worked on that project. One of my very first Photoshop projects.
Cool. Very good.
Yeah.
Now, hopefully, the people who are watching today have been inspired to get in there and start playing and pushing buttons and see what happens.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well,
It'd be,
everybody,
it'd be a game. It's a video game, except you're not killing anybody. You're creating.
you're
So it's
creating. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Bert. There's a lot of great comments in the chat. Everybody, thank you so much. Feel free to leave a comment to say bye to Bert. I'm sure he'll read those. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. It was a pleasure, and we'll see you again next time. Bye, everybody. And we're off.
okay.